Steve.
What about this central Democratic argument that the money spent on the Iraq War has taken away from Homeland Security and the war on terrorism?
Well, it's an argument that seems to indicate that the war on terror would not exist if we were not in Iraq. Let me remind everybody that that terrorists spent years plotting September 11th. Hezbollah has been active as a terrorist organization for decades. Hamas has been on the terror watch list for many years. Jamaat Islamiyah and other groups have also been on the terror watch list for years. So the fact is that the Iraq War has become a central point, as Prime Minister Maliki has pointed out, and the President said as well, because terrorists are trying to figure out if Western governments have the will, and also governments in the region have the will to stand up to isolated acts of terror that are designed to frighten and disrupt nations. The President said no, it's not going to happen in the case of the United States of America. But it's also pretty clear that in the war on terror, we have in fact been doing a lot of things pretty ably. We had the arrests in London last week, and that was the result of cooperation between the United States, Britain, Pakistan. In addition, what you saw is a United States government, for those of you who are traveling, that within a very short period of time, we sort of ironed out procedures at airports, which is pretty miraculous. This is not the sort of thing that would have happened before September 11th. And so I think what you're seeing is also some evidence of the very kinds of efforts that the President was being briefed on today, but also a reminder that the challenges are always there. The terrorists, in fact, are busy trying to do these, are always trying to come up with innovative ways to murder innocent people. And the President is encouraging all of his people to think creatively so that we can try to prevent that.
George Will wrote this morning that the administration is so self-delusional that if it recognized that it needed to make, or if it became necessary to make a change in tactics, that it would not recognize it, and that perhaps Senator Kerry had the right formula back in the last election year. I'd like to reply to that.
It's the first time I think I've ever heard you cite George Will with approval. No, look, the fact is, I've just talked to you about how nimble the administration is. It is one of the things you need in a time of war is a clear vision, a clear sense of determination. But one of the things the President has talked about at all junctures is being nimble in response to threats. So George writes a wonderful column, a nice readable column, but this administration, I'm sorry, but the column doesn't resemble the administration for which I work.
Tony, I don't understand why the President doesn't want to get involved in the diffusing of tensions between China and South Korea on the one hand and Japan on the other with the visit to the shrine.
Because that's something they can do themselves.
On Homeland Security, after the thwarted terror plot last week, there's a growing chorus of top Democrats specifically criticizing the administration for skimping on technology designed to detect explosives at airports 5 years after 9/11. What's the administration's response to that?
Simply not true. The administration has devoted considerable resources. It's interesting that every time we have a success, Democrats come out and complain. Now, I don't quite understand that unless they're seeking desperately some political advantage out of a success story. What they ought to be doing is saying, good, let's continue to work together to make it better. And I think that's an important tone to strike. But I'm kind of at odds and ends to try to figure out why we have a lot of second guessing going on. It seems to me, just as I was pointing out earlier with these allegations about the bin Laden unit, and a lot of people who are making these comments know exactly what the facts are. And I understand that it's a political year. And we get accused of politicizing when stuff like this is thrown our way. What I would suggest is that those who are interested, please come up with a credible, specific proposal upon which people can act. We are all for doing everything we can to make the homeland more secure. And I think all Americans would appreciate that. Steve.
If the President's not frustrated by the situation in Iraq, then what is he?
Determined.
Does he feel like the Maliki government is doing an effective job?
He feels like the Maliki government, like you've got a government that is brand new. As I told you, today you had the Prime Minister going outside the green zone, addressing forces, Iraqi forces in Baghdad neighborhoods. This is a guy who has a series of challenges before him with his government, and the President is impressed not only by his determination to get the job done, but the fact is that he is working aggressively to do these things. We don't expect him to be an overnight success in dealing with all these problems, nobody can be. But the president certainly supports Prime Minister Maliki. And, the frustration angle is just one that just doesn't, when you're facing a situation, you don't sit around and get frustrated. You figure out how to get the job done. And I've said it many times, and I'll say it because it's true. The president is somebody who's intensely practical about these things, and not somebody who sits around and goes, I can't wait to see how you translate that.
I was looking at my people. Okay.
Who is one of those people?
Rome does that.
Who does do that?
Bad guys.
Picture out of Lebanon right now, and it's a picture. It's 3 days out, okay,
Yeah.
but it's certainly Hezbollah. They've declared victory. They're rebuilding. They seem to have popular support. It's not the picture that one may have expected to see at the start of the conflict. Is the administration confident that it will still get the end result it wanted?
The end result we want is a peaceful, democratic Lebanon. I mean, again, if you have Hezbollah turning peaceful and everybody loves it, that's fine, as long as Hezbollah decides to be democratic. But the point is, it's been a terror organization. Hezbollah suckered a lot of people, including journalistic organizations in this room, because it ended up being able to stage photographs. I remember Anderson Cooper getting up there saying every single thing we go to is getting staged here. You've had news organizations having to pull photographs because they were bogus. They have done a masterful PR campaign.
What's the White House reaction to the offer by Jesse Jackson to go over there and try to get involved and negotiate a prisoner exchange?
Sometimes a picture says 1,000 words.
Well, I think what everyone's reacting to is that there's been a lot of writing and from war supporters that there needs to be a change, and clearly this is driven by the violence that we're seeing out of Baghdad. And some of these writings from the biggest supporters of the invasion, they've been advocating an increase in forces, a major increase in forces, not from one place to another, but a re-upping.
Yeah.
And in this political year, is it politically feasible to increase troops by November, or do you see that? I mean, will the party
If it's the right,
and will the president do it if the generals say you needed a major increase?
The president's made it clear, if the generals make the recommendation and they say they need it, they're going to get it. And I don't know how many times I have to say it, but I'll keep reiterating. The political angle really matters less to him than his obligations and solemn responsibilities as commander-in-chief. You got to get that right. I mean, that is his absolute objective. And so it's simply, if somebody says, sir, you're going to get a real political bounce if you detail another 30,000. If that is not what the generals have asked, that's not what's going to happen. Similarly, if somebody says you'll get a real political bounce if you pull out 30,000, and that's not what the generals have requested, it's not going to happen. But the French have been.
But they're dragging their feet too at the same time.
I'm not sure that's the case. I wouldn't share the characterization.
All right.
I mean, you got me up here defending the French. It's global news.
We hear you. Back on Richard's
It's
issue.
OUI.
Back on Richard's